and welcome to this week's Wildlife Matters podcast. I'm your host, Nigel Palmer, and in today's action-packed episode, we continue our adventure to discover some of the rarest wildflowers in the UK, and we spend some precious time in nature enjoying a windy night in the woods in this week's Wildlife Matters Mindful Moments. But before that, let's head to the news desk to bring you the latest wildlife and nature stories in this week's Wildlife Matters Nature News. Hello and welcome to this week's Wildlife Matters and Nature News. And our first story today is one of great tragedy because a second dolphin has been found dead on the bank of the River Thames after the creatures were spotted swimming in West London and parts of southeast London last week. One of the dolphins, nicknamed Jojo by local children, was spotted swimming in the Hammersmith area last Thursday. Mary Tester, a British divers marine life rescue volunteer, told Wildlife Matters that two dead dolphins were recently found. The one that was found in Battersea on Sunday is believed to be Jojo. Another dolphin was found dead on the bank of the River Thames at Greenwich. It was thought that the animals, which were both common dolphins, were part of the same pod. Social media users reported seeing two dolphins playing in the water near Greenwich and by Deptford Creek on Tuesday and Wednesday last week. Then Jojo the dolphin was spotted multiple times in West London on Thursday between Hammersmith and Wandsworth Park. Mary Tester described the mammal as looking extremely disorientated and pretty lethargic. Mary hopes that the relevant river bodies will agree on a plan so the BDMLR can intervene to help dolphins in distress when they are in the Thames. Locals to the river throughout London are asked to contact the British Divers Marine Life Rescue if they see a dolphin in the Thames. It is essential so that the BDMLR can come out and monitor the mammal and see if there's anything else we can do to help it. So far this year, we have seen 5 pods of dolphins coming up beyond the estuary and into the Thames. 4 have come into London, but unfortunately, none of those pods have survived. Our second story on this week's Wildlife Matters Nature News is of a farmer-led badger vaccination trial that raises hopes for ending bovine TB. Now, this is a small-scale study that's been in Cornwall, suggests that vaccinating badgers can be practicable, technically effective and acceptable to farmers. Testing of badgers alongside the vaccination showed that the number of badgers testing positive for the disease fell from 16% at the beginning of the survey to 0 by the end. The team behind the project could administer the vaccine to more badgers per square kilometre than were captured in a nearby coal zone, with separate counts from camera traps suggesting nearly 3/4 of 74% of local badgers received the vaccine. The farmers in the study reported increased enthusiasm for vaccination as a tool for controlling bovine TB. Interviews conducted as part of the study found that they were also keen to continue vaccination beyond the original 4 years. In 2022, coal licences covered nearly a quarter or 24% of mainland England. However, the study said the previous government had announced its intention to scale back badger culling and expand vaccination following an independent scientific review, and the new Labour government has pledged to work with farmers and scientists on measures to eradicate bovine TB protecting livelihoods so that we can end the ineffective badger cull. However, the vaccination scheme in Cornwall, initiated by farmers and implemented by the Zoological Society of London, Cornwall Wildlife Trust and Imperial College London, raises hopes that it could be used as an essential tool for controlling the disease. The study's team says larger scale assessments of badger vaccinations' impact on cattle disease rates are needed, and they are calling on the government to support further evaluations of community-led badger trials. Professor Rosie Woodruff, project lead and researcher at ZSL's Institute of Zoology, told Wildlife Matters that bovine tuberculosis can devastate farmers' livelihoods, and hundreds of thousands of cattle and badgers have been slaughtered for bovine TB control in recent years. Everyone wants to see this disease eradicated. We hope this work will help move bovine TB control into a place where farmers and wildlife groups can work together towards this shared goal. Keith Truscott, founder of the Mid-Cornwall Badger Vaccination Farmers Group and Report's senior author, said, "We need a solution to tackle bovine tuberculosis. As a cattle farmer, I'm constantly worried that one of our cows might test positive for the disease, so doing nothing is not an option. And I sleep better at night knowing people are working to eradicate the disease through vaccination." The study has been published in this month's People and Nature journal. And our third story is the Water for Wildlife campaign, where gardeners are being encouraged to leave a tray of water in their gardens to help out wildlife after days of scorching temperatures. While many of us are enjoying the warmer weather, especially following the middle of June and early July, it can harm vital pollinators that help keep our ecosystems afloat. All bee species and wasps are pollinators, and seeing them in our gardens can help boost our mood. They are also important for crop production, which keeps foods in stock at the supermarket. There is concern after many surveys have revealed that bee numbers are seriously declining, mainly due to habitat loss, the systematic and routine use of pesticides, air pollution and climate change. And many of us want to help them, but don't know what to do. One impact of climate change is the rise in temperatures, and this is a problem for many plants, animals and of course humans. Bumblebees, who are covered in a furry coat which helps them deal with the colder winters here in Britain, are dying from dehydration as they become overheated in the warmer temperatures. And that's why we're asking gardeners to leave a tray of water in their gardens to help bumblebees and other wildlife throughout the year. As the temperatures rise, bumblebees are moving north to find more suitable environments, but sadly, some species may find themselves with nowhere left to go. Gardeners are being asked to provide water for wildlife throughout the year and encouraged to plant more flowering plants in shady areas, which can provide shade and shelter as well as pollen for the bees. If you see a sleepy bee on the ground or in the hot sun, it may well be in trouble, and if you can, safely move it to a shadier area, preferably with flowers and a shallow dish of water that's been filled with gravel or small stones so that the bees and insects can drink the water and they can also get out should they fall in. The Wildlife Matters website will soon have more information and ways that you can get involved with our Water for Wildlife campaign. And that has been this week's Wildlife Matters Nature News. And welcome back to the second part of our exciting journey to find Britain's rarest woodland wild plants. In part one, our success rate in seeing some of Britain's rarest plants was a little hit and miss, but that was to be expected. Clearly, by its very nature, this is a challenge. So get yourself a cup of tea or coffee and a couple of biscuits and settle down for the second part of our challenge. And we will start part two by heading east towards the beautiful fens area of Britain in search of the next rare woodland plant. The crested cowwheat, Melamprium cristatum. Now, this lovely looking wildflower is found in ancient or semi-ancient woodland rides, grasslands and hedgerows, but it's now scarce in the UK and confined to the East Anglia area. Crested cowwheat is an unusual looking flower. It's an annual plant with densely packed purple and yellow flower heads and deep-toothed rose-purple bracts. Now, despite its bright colouring, it is an inconspicuous plant that is very hard to find among the other grasses and plants it grows within. But don't be deceived by its stunning looks, because crested cowwheat has some dark, unusual secrets. The first of those is it's semi-parasitic, which means it exploits several host plants for its food reserves. This unique adaptation allows it to thrive in specific ecological conditions, making it a crucial part of the ecosystem. And, rather cleverly, it tricks wood ants into dispersing its seeds that visually mimic the wood ant cocoon. Of course, there is a payoff for the wood ants in the super sweet treat that the crested cowwheat provides them as the incentive. And the ants seem happy enough to transport their seeds back to their nests. I arrived at the semi-ancient woodland and within a few minutes had entered the ride. It was wide and open with a meadow habitat full of grasses and wildflowers. The grassland was around knee height, with an incredible cacophony of sound from the millions of insects busily going about their business. It took me a few minutes to get my eye in and see a range of beautiful wildflowers within the knee-deep grasses, but it was then that I saw them. A small patch of crested cowwheat plants was glorious in its striking purple and yellow livery. Plants were all around 50 centimetres high and sat on their thin circular stems. They had slim, long green leaves with distinctive rose-purple coloured bracts. Above the bracts were beautiful yellow flowers with pink bases. Crested cowwheat flowers emerge through July and August. Now, crested cowwheat is related to the much more common yellow rattle. This wonderful wild plant plays a vital role in colonising grasslands as they transition to wildflower meadows. And you can find other members of the cowwheat's family that flower in Britain, including the common cowwheat or the field cowwheat. Now, we're heading southeast for today's journey to a site that I have been told about where there is an excellent chance of us finding the next wild plant that we're looking for, and that is the lady orchid, or Orchis purpurea. One thing I have learnt from our adventures is that the wild orchids that can be found in Britain are firstly incredibly rare, difficult to find, and pretty erratic in their behaviour. Still, they are also frequently named for the quirky shape of their flowers, and the lady orchid is no exception. It is said that the shape of the flowers resembles bonneted ladies in spotted ball gowns, complete with arms. And this is a clear reference to times gone by, as I can't recall seeing any lady I know wearing a bonnet, and very few of them wearing spotted gowns. In Britain, the lady orchid is a woodland plant favouring alkaline or occasionally neutral soils, and it occurs in short grassland on woodland edges and sometimes in open woodland. The lady orchid prefers calciferous or chalky soils and is often associated with beech or hazel woodlands, where it forms a unique part of the woodland ecosystems. And this is a large orchid. It can grow up to 80 centimetres tall, and it has a basal rosette with up to 8 large erect leaves, which are glossy green but unmarked. Each stem contains a large flower spike with up to 200 individual flowers. The upper sepals and petals are a deep, dark red, forming a hood above the lip of the flowers. The flowers are white with pink tips to the petals and strongly marked with deep red stripes or marks that match the colour of the hood. There's very little that can compare with a lady orchid when you've seen one in real life, with its sheer size and volume of vivid white and dark red flowers. And of course, being an orchid, it has to have a few quirky behaviours, the main one being it can take up to 10 years before it flowers for the first time. It's also very slow to spread, but can multiply, unusually for an orchid, by forming tubers. But I was so happy to find lady orchids in flower during June, although they can be seen from May until around the end of June. Further south in Europe, they can flower as early as April. Now, the next plant appeared to be easy to find as it was known to be on just one site in the northwest of England, but back in 2022, the plants were all removed as the origin of the original plants was European and not British. So now the challenge would be on to find a wild lady's slipper orchid, Cypripedium calceolus. The lady's slipper orchid is a truly exotic looking plant. It would look so at home in the jungles of Asia, but so it's surprising to find it in the wilds of northern Britain. Its unique appearance is a wonder, with solitary flowers boasting dark maroon petals and a striking, sizable yellow pouch lip. This uniquely shaped plant, the lady's slipper orchid, takes its common name from its scientific title, which means Venus shoe. But its uniqueness doesn't end there. Like other rare orchids, the lady's slipper orchid relies on a close relationship with a specific type of fungi to help germinate its seeds, and that is another testament to nature's interconnectedness. My research led me away from the northwest of Britain and towards the northeast. This orchid flowers for only a short window of around 2 weeks each year, so time was very much again of the essence. So I set off for the long journey to Yorkshire and a private woodland site set on limestone, where I would be searching for the most elusive wild lady slipper orchid. That's a true challenge for any nature enthusiast. The orchid is 60 to 70 centimetres tall and has a stunning bright green stem. Its green bracts are deeply veined and behind the flowers. Each plant can have between 1 and up to 3 dark maroon flowers with wavy edges and speckled olive green centres. The main feature is, of course, the striking yellow pouch or slipper. Lady's slipper orchid is a perennial that grows from an underground rhizome. It has always been highly prized, particularly by Victorian plant collectors who took specimens from the wild, so much so that concerns were raised in 1888 that the orchid could become extinct. But the relentless taking of the plants from the wild continued, combined with an ever decreasing habitat and the impact of increased grazing, mainly by sheep, led to the eventual extinction of the lady slipper orchid in 1917. So here I am, hiking up a steep slope through a woodland looking for a plant that's been extinct for over a century. As I ponder that, the irony that the first recording of a lady slipper orchid in Britain was from the area I'm in way back in 1640. And this encouraged me and helped me to press on. I was enjoying this wonderful woodland that sadly only a few people can experience. But it certainly has some age to it. It is a predominantly oak woodland with an understory of ash and hazel. The hazel was once coppiced, and whilst it is maintained, I doubt it is a viable crop anymore. Part of the agreement for me to visit the woodland was that I could not damage or remove the orchid or any part of it should I find it, and that any pictures I took would be shared with the woodland owner. I had, of course, agreed to this and not to reveal the exact location, but I couldn't help thinking about what would happen if I were to accidentally step on the only lady's slipper orchid in the woodland. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But I did find lady slipper orchids that day, and they are the rarest plants I have ever seen. I stood in awe at the beauty, history, and scarcity of the plant in front of me, and I thought it was sad that very few people would get to enjoy this beautiful plant on this wonderful site. And it was hard to walk away from that sight. I don't know if I will ever see a lady slipper orchid in the wild again, but I do have the pictures I took, and I have included them in the written article that you will find on our website, which is www.wildlife-matters.org, and search for the blog Britain's Rarest Woodland Wildflowers Part 2. The exact location and all data and pictures from the day have been shared with the woodland owner and, through them, forwarded on to Natural England, who have a project to protect the lady slipper orchid in the wild. I do hope that my short but memorable encounter with this beautiful native orchid may help to conserve the species so that more of you can enjoy seeing one of these stunning orchids in the wild in the future. And now for something completely different. That was a well-used phrase from my TV childhood as we head off to a woodland near Bath in Somerset in search of the spiked star of Bethlehem, Ornithogalum pyrenchaecum. The spiked star of Bethlehem was thought to have been introduced to Britain by the Romans. However, more recently, it is now believed to be a native British wildflower. It is found in woodlands and along hedgerows. It flowers around the same time as the bluebells, ransoms, or wild garlic, and is often found growing nearby. In early spring, the plant produces white, star-shaped flowers, hence the name, with distinctive green stripes formed of 6 equal lobes, each of which is around 10 mil long, on tall up to 60 centimetre vertical stems. The flowers often drop towards the tip and mature from the base upwards for several weeks. The leaves are a greenish grey, basal, linear and grass-like, and they're up to 60 centimetres long, but usually the leaves have already withered before the plant is in flower. The plant is also known as Bath asparagus, or sometimes wild asparagus. And yes, it is edible, and yes, it is delicious. It can be used like its cultivated cousin, and it is a meal to savour when combined with some wild ransoms and mushrooms in a risotto. The spiked Star of Bethlehem is uncommon, but has stable populations in the wild, although it is thought to be declining locally in Bath as a side effect of the Dutch elm disease. A cultivated version of Bath asparagus is readily available from nurseries and specialist growers. There's some fascinating folklore around Bath asparagus that tells how a local shop owner from Bath with his wife would gather wild asparagus every year and sell it from their little local shop. And that explains how it got to be known as Bath asparagus. But it can be found outside Somerset, mainly between Reading and Bristol, but nowhere else throughout Britain. So, if you know of a patch of wild asparagus, please only collect a sustainable harvest each year, just enough for a couple of meals, never damaging the plant's bulbs. This rare wild plant will then continue to be a tasty treat for wild foragers into the future. Now I'm staying local for the next plant, which is one of my very favourite wild plants. The May lily is also known as the false lily of the valley, which is a beautiful but not rare plant. Now, I would argue that it is in fact the lily of the valley that should be considered as the false May lily, which has been in Britain for thousands and thousands of years, but was considered rare since Victorian times. And there are many, many similarities between the two plants. May lily is a herbaceous perennial with large heart-shaped leaves and small white flowers in dense clusters forming on the top of the stem during May and June. And the plant's scientific name perfectly describes it, with Mayanthemum meaning blooms in May and bifolium meaning two leaves. This woodland is ancient, meaning that it has been here permanently wooded since at least 1600. You can find May lily in moist, shady areas, often close to or along a woodland stream. May lily requires specific nutrients to thrive. It doesn't like heathlands or low nutrient land, but equally doesn't like lush pasture or nutrient rich land. It is recognised as one of the indicator species of medium nutrient acidic soils on woodlands rides. May lily prefers growing near spruce trees, where it gets the deep shade that it needs. Plantations may be critical to the species' future survival. But there aren't any spruce trees on this side. Here we found May lily around the ancient yew trees in the woodland. May lily is now considered rare, with only a few remaining sites that are mainly in the southern part of England. The plant has been used in folk medicine and was said to be a remedy for heart ailments, liver problems, and fevers. Some folk stories claim that the May lily roots were used to make a love potion. A word of warning though, the whole plant is mildly toxic to humans, and the small red berries that form after the flowers have been pollinated are far more harmful to us than the leaves or bulbs. The berries, though, are very attractive to birds that then spread the seeds of the May lily in their droppings. We are now staying in the same ancient woodland to search for another plant. And that is the spiked rampion, Phytuma spicatum. Spiked rampion is a herbaceous perennial member of the campanula or bellflower family and one of only two Phytuma species in Britain. It can grow up to 60 centimetres tall and has a rosette of basal leaves. The plants are a dense, spike-like cluster of small white flowers that look like shredded paper. The flowers bloom from June right the way through to August and are pollinated by various insects, including bees and butterflies. The spiked rampion likes shady woodland edges and hedgerows, but these have declined by over 95% in Britain over the last few decades. It is another plant that benefits from soil disturbance from woodland activities such as coppicing, which has also declined rapidly. But this plant has a fascinating and diverse history. It's the plant which Rapunzel stole in the well-known fairy tale. And it's also played a starring role in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, who described it as the flower of Tinuvile in his novel The Silmarillion. Spiked rampion has long been used in traditional medicine, with nearly all parts of the plant being used. The root has been used to treat coughs, bronchitis, and asthma, while the leaves and flowers have been used to relieve fever, headaches, and joint pains. The plant has also been used as a diuretic, to treat digestive disorders, and to help a wound heal. This plant also has a whole range of culinary uses. Its leaves and roots, which have a slightly bitter taste, are often used in soups, stews, and salads. The plant's young leaves can also be eaten raw or cooked and taste a little like spinach. Ecologically, spiked rampion benefits many wild animals. The plant is a food source and habitat for various insects and animals, including bees and butterflies and small mammals, and its roots help stabilize soil and prevent soil erosion. Modern science studies revealed that the spiked rampion contains various chemical compounds responsible for its medicinal properties, including saponins, flavonoids, and tannins. Saponins have the potential to be a natural emulsifying and foaming agent. Saponins also have been shown to have an antifungal and antibacterial properties, making them an alternative to synthetic antimicrobial agents. The plant's flavonoids have also been studied for their potential to inhibit cancer cell growth and reduce inflammation, making them a potential source of anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory drugs. I hope you've enjoyed our look at Britain's rarest woodland plants and have been captivated by the diversity and scale of their struggles for survival, how some have been used for food and medicine for many hundreds of years, or are a key indicator species of ancient woodlands. If you have enjoyed this adventure and would like us to do more, please do let us know in the comments or leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And that has been this week's Wildlife Matters main feature. And now it's time on the Wildlife Matters podcast for our mindful moments. Let me set the scene for you. It's been a long day's walk and we have arrived in a small woodland copse. The swirling wind is blowing along the dark clouds. It is clear a storm is coming our way. So we hastily set up camp and hunkered down in a hollow area surrounded by trees for what could be a long night. Whenever the moon and stars are set, whenever the wind is high, all night long through the dark and the wet, the storm shakes us in its ferocious grip, but by morning light has passed us by. Upon hearing that, the memories of that stormy evening came flooding back. And even though it was windy, I enjoyed lying in the safety of the camp, listening to the wind whistling and howling above us. We later found out that we were, in fact, camping in a hollow that was an excavated former burial mound. Wow. That has been this week's Wildlife Matters Mindful Moments. Well, I hope you have enjoyed our adventure and discovering some of the rarest wildflowers throughout the UK. And I'm so excited to let you know that the Wildlife Matters Tea Mill store is now live and on our website. It features a new range of organic cotton T-shirts and hoodies with unique Wildlife Matters branding and in a stunning range of colours that we know you're going to love. And we've launched it as a starter range, including tote bags and mugs in addition to the t-shirts and hoodies. And we will be working to continue to develop the range, including some new campaign branded apparel in the coming weeks. So do head over to our website www.wildlife-matters.org to visit our shop. And as always, time is running away with us again, but there is time to thank you for listening to us. And please tell your friends, your family, your colleagues who you think may enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much. But for now, I have been your host, Nigel Palmer, and this is Wildlife Matters, signing off.